Hi, folks. I've been asked to do or answer some questions with all the interviews going on. There hasn't been one with me, and so here I go with the first question. Okay. Honestly, I think Druidry found me even before I even realised I was looking for it. Growing up, I was surrounded by Neolithic sites, ancient medieval manor houses, Iron Age forts, ruins, and did stuff that I came to know now were ancient Celtic traditions, so kind of brought up with it. Living in South Wales, like most people of my generation, we were under the English education system, which meant I had to rediscover my history and the spirit of Wales as an adult, like uncovering part of me, part of myself. So all my life I've been pulled to Indigenous cultures and studied them, pulled to sacred sites, been part of the natural world, mountains, rivers, ancient growth, the stars. They all whisper their own wisdom. So I did a lot of studying about ancient cultures all over the world. Journey's been a bit of a winding path. The most important part of those ancient and traditional cultures and teachings are the Molokai lineage, the Hawaiian lineage. This still is a big part of my practice and my foundation in life, and therefore spirituality in general. For Druidry, I continue to study with the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids and the Anglesey Druid Order. For Celtic and in particular Welsh culture and traditions, I am a student of Celtic Source with Dr. Gwilym Morris Baird. Each of these people and teachings continually deepens my understanding. But it's not just about the study. It's about feeling the land. It's about connecting with it and also knowing me. Well, this is kind of a passionate and emotional point for me. It's a big one. So growing up with the English education curriculum meant I wasn't really taught the true depths of Welsh history, traditions or spirituality. And in fact, I often felt like being Welsh was something to be ashamed of, because there was a constant undercurrent, taunting, dismissiveness from English institutions that made being Welsh feel like a disadvantage. And it's not just me, this is deep roots. It goes all the way back to what we call the Blue Books of 1847, which is an infamous report which basically concluded that being Welsh speaking was a disadvantage and that everyone should speak English. It painted Welsh culture and language as backward to then the English institution. But that stigma lingered for generations, even my generation. So for a long time, I felt disconnected to my own heritage, but as I got older, I started to push back against that narrative, and I sought out stories, visited sacred sites, and learned our myths. The people I study with are people who genuinely want to know the depths of tradition. Like with Gwilym Morris Baird and the Anglesey Druid Order. It's like opening curtains, like pulling back a veil. I just want learning enough facts. I was reconnecting with a birthright that had almost been stolen from me. So rediscovering that history and spirituality of Wales wasn't just an interest for me, it was a healing. It was reclaiming something that had been taken, and now it's something that I'm passionate about sharing with others. honestly, the two traditions are like two sides of the same coin for me. Through Hawaiian tradition, I was introduced to protocols, prayer, dance, and meditation, or what I was taught, listening. All passed down orally from generation to generation. That way of learning is so personal and so precise, and it answered every question I had. It wasn't just a knowledge, it was an experience, a direct connection. And it was actually one of my kumus, who are master teachers, who suggested I look deeply into my own cultural roots. And that was a bit of a lightning bolt, realizing how important it was to reclaim the spirituality of my Welsh ancestry. So that has led me back to Druidry. I was immediately drawn to the deep reverence for nature and life, but what really kept me there was the work, the need to uncover its truths. The Welsh Druid tradition has gaps in its recorded history. We have a Welsh Bardic tradition that has got a lot more information available to us. So it feels like pieces of a puzzle you have to put together. And I didn't walk into that blindly. The solid foundation I had with my Hawaiian lineage, where teachings were unbroken and precise, gave me a kind of spiritual compass, so to speak. It helped me recognize trustworthy teachers within the Welsh and Celtic traditions. So some might look at this, my spiritual paths, and see mixture of beliefs, but for me it's clear, coherent alignment. My Hawaiian teachers are personal, they anchor me. But while I'm working as a Druid and a celebrant, they come hand in hand, I'm rooted in the Welsh and Celtic tradition. It stands strong in its own right. I respect both. The beauty is that they don't compete, they complement each other. So the Hawaiian's teachings ground me, while my Druidry allows me to share my own heritage and help others connect with the sacred land of Wales. So hope that answers that. So the vision behind the tour. Well, I have to go back to Australia for this one. So the visions came about in a very magical way. I was at the first assembly of Druids since the pandemic in Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere. Calling my Druids down under. We were all sharing our experiences, and when I spoke about my own journey, because I had just come back from spending 12 months in Wales, I told them about my connection to Wales, about the sacred sites, about the spiritual place, about experiences. And so it was that group of people, few in particular, that really encouraged to turn what I was very passionate about into something really tangible. So they saw something in me I quite hadn't claimed for myself. So, and they encouraged me that I could guide others to experience the land and spirit of Wales in a way only somebody with the blood and bone ancestry and somebody who had fallen in love with the land and the culture could offer. So with that encouragement, planted the seed. As the Druids say, it always comes from planting the seed. And from there, the tour was born. And for me, it's not about being a tour guide. It's about sharing something sacred. It's introducing people to the land of Wales, not as tourists, but as fellow seekers. Each site has a story, an energy, a presence that you can only really feel by your feet being on the land. And I get to be that bridge that helps others connect with that. I share the myths, the history, the old ways, but more than that, I share the spirit of the place. The sense of standing where our ancestors stood, feeling the wind, listening to what it has to say, feeling the pulse of the earth. Connect with the ancient stones and the secrets that they hold. So guiding others through this sacred site is a pure honour. It's about giving people a chance to connect to something timeless, to experience a deep sense of belonging and wonder that I found when I first stepped into Druidry. And every time I was I see someone else light up with the same connection, I'm I'm reminded why I do it. It's beautiful. Okay, so each participant is going to be on their own journey, right? But for me, it's about setting the right intention before we even arrive. Each location on the tour has its own story, its own energy, and I want people to feel that as soon as they step foot there, as soon as they breathe that air. So we take our time. I've designed the itinerary so that we can really soak in the atmosphere, listen to the land, and connect with the spirit of place. Honestly, for me, it starts with respect. The land, the stories, the spirits of place. I make sure that every location we visit on the tour is more than just a pretty backdrop. It's a living, breathing space with its own history and energy, and I introduce it that way. I share stories and myths tied to each site, not just as folklore, but as living wisdom. We might begin with a moment of silence or gentle grounding exercise when we get to each location to help everybody settle and be really connected to that space. I'm also really careful about who I bring as guest storytellers and workshop leaders. These people know the land. They live and breathe it. And I make sure we don't overwhelm the experience. The itinerary is designed so it's paced. There's time for reflection, for wandering, for simply being. And of course, to have some ritual. But don't be scared of a ritual either. And if you want to, we get to dress up. I most certainly will be getting dressed up. I have robes and I have cloaks and I have headdresses already made. And everybody can borrow them as well if you don't have any of your own. Just enjoy the moment. But most importantly on this tour, I hold space. Whether it's a stone circle, whether it's a grove we're in, whether we're up the mountain, I'm holding space for you to experience the awe, joy, peace, and the deep sense of connection to the ancestors. I want you to feel the sacredness, not just talk about it. So why choose these sites? Well, the tour is a journey. It follows stories, myths, the connection to spirit of place. What's important to participate in Welsh ancestry. So, and I can choose many more sites, but then we'd have a really, really long tour and a very, very busy one. And I don't want that. I want you to enjoy those places. So these sites are not just beautiful, okay? They're steeped in their own myth, tradition and energy, its own story. So the Menai. We need to honour the Druids' last stand, the site where the Roman invasion that claimed to have wiped out the Welsh Druids. It was a powerful and it was a massacre. And so we always have to start with honouring those people. And I won't say any more because it's a part of resilience and remembrance. So Bryn Celli Ddu is breathtaking burial chamber. It's a covered burial chamber. It's like really, really unique and very beautiful. And it's where the Anglesey Druid Order hold their public rituals. So, of course, it's going to be right. But it's very much alive with modern Druid practice. Owyddfa, or some people might know it as Snowdon. It's the highest mountain in Wales and England. This is where we connect to giants. As you think about it, it's the highest mountain. This is where the giants, you get closer to the gods or the goddesses if that's how you want to see it. You're standing on a peak that gives you perspective on that part of Wales that you can't get anywhere else. And when we come down from that mountain, we go to Llyn Tegid. Llyn is a lake. It's a legendary lake. And it's tied to the story of Taliesin and Ceridwen, a story known all around the world, but one that is rooted right there in Llyn Tegid. Dinas Emrys is a cornerstone of Welsh heritage. The story of the Welsh dragon rising, which is now a national symbol, and the first appearance of Merlin in our mythology. It's a place of legend and magic. Ceredigion, or you might know it as Cardigan, is where the very first Eisteddfod was ever held. A big celebration of poetry and music in the name of peace. And that's still a part of Welsh culture. It's a living culture. Carmarthen is about honouring Iolo Morgannwg, the man who resurrected the Welsh Druid traditions we know today. The movement of Neo-Druidism stems from that man. Pentrefan in West Wales is the most mysterious open burial chamber in the Preseli Mountains. And remember, the Preseli is where the blue stones of Stonehenge were quarried. It's raw and ancient energy. You can feel that in the moment you arrive. And then St. Lythams is my burial chamber. Well, not mine personally, but it's where I hold my public Druid rituals. And I visited that place ever since I was a child. With Castle Henleys, I love going to Castle Henleys. It's like you can dress up just because everybody else is dressed up in Iron Age cloaks and robes, and it's reconstructed Iron Age village, actually built on the ruins of an ancient Iron Age village. So you can step right back in time and get a real sense of how the people lived. So every one of these sites have got history and spirit and stories, mythology. But you really need to come along on the tour to hear them properly and feel them, because it's all part of the living, breathing landscape of Wales. Yeah, I am passionate. My Kumu said to me the other day, she called me the self-appointed Welsh ambassador, Welsh cultural ambassador. And I think every person who loves Wales is a Welsh cultural ambassador. So, what do I see as the biggest challenge? Well, in preserving Welsh Druidry is a mix of forgetting and romanticising. On the one hand, there's a constant risk of a true history and spirituality of Welsh Druidry being forgotten, buried under suppression, like with the Blue Books of 1847, which didn't dismiss the language. That mindset still lingers, and a lot of authentic Welsh heritage was pushed aside. Yeah, enough said. On the other hand, there's romanticising, okay? So people love the idea of Druidry but end up following a fantasy version of it. There's been many of my peers telling stories about this. It kind of disconnects from its real root. It's great to have all of that, right? The imagination, inspiration, but without grounding in the genuine Welsh cultural language and history, it becomes something else inspiring. It just is a fantasy. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Another challenge is access. Sacred sites are under pressure from tourism. The stories get watered down for visitors who just want a quick photo rather than genuine connection. That's actually one of the reasons I created the Sacred Stories Tour, to offer a space where people can experience these places with respect and understanding, learning the true stories and feeling their spirit. You got to remember, they're not all pretty stories. They're not all pretty fairy tale stories. Okay. Finally, there's a challenge of the language, like we spoke about. Welsh is at the heart of mythology. To understand mythology, you need to understand Welsh. To understand Welsh is to understand that it cannot be translated to English, word for word. A Welsh language has meaning. One word can mean many things in context of something different. But even today, it's a minority language and it's fighting to survive. So without the language, we lose a huge part of the soul of Welsh Druidry. I imagine something quite different, as Druidry today is both reflects an ancient wisdom that we've had to work out from other people's words and in response to a modern world. In some ways, it's like a river, right? It has the same source, but it's always flowing, it's always on the move, it's always adapting. So, Welsh Druids part of a living oral tradition. Keepers of law, LAW and LORE. Philosophy, spirituality, natural wisdom. it's all woven into the society of time. They didn't write down teachings, they passed them on through storytelling, poetry, and direct experience. They were also tied to communities and played active roles in guiding people. Today, we don't have that same kind of lineage. Invasions, colonialism, all of it, centuries of cultural wipeout and suppression. But we do have the echoes of Druidry in Wales. We have the myths, we have the stories, we have the sacred sites, we have the landscape, we have folklore, and the poetic traditions that still survive today. Modern Welsh Druidry is a revival, a conscious effort to reconnect to those ancient roots. It's not about trying to reinvent those roles in today, because they just wouldn't work. So it's piecing together. You have to study and you have to do some storytelling and you have to do some ritual, but it's most important at the core of it, it's a direct connection to this land. So the biggest difference today is Druidry's choice. It's not something you're born with. You're not forced into the role by your community. It's something you're called to do, something you choose to live. And because of that, it's incredibly diverse. And some practice it in a very different way to the Celtic or Welsh way that I do. But at its core, it's a nature-based approach. And I think Druidry is a path of connection. It's a connection to nature. It's a connection to the ancestors. It's a connection to the wisdom of the land. And it's a connection to yourself and to spirit of everywhere and anywhere that you go. And while we may express it differently now, the truth of that hasn't changed. Well, balancing the accessibility and the sacredness of sites is really important, okay? Sacred sites are open to the public. And so people can experience energy and wisdom, rightfully so. But at the same time, we need to preserve the sanctity of history and the spiritual essence. Okay, so respect is a big part of that. I try and choose sites that can handle visitors without being too overwhelmed. I've carefully selected the locations. And because they are mostly public, we need to respect that, right? Some sites like Bryn Celli or the burial chamber at St. Livens, they've been visited and cared for by the Druid community for many, many years, and the pagan community, and still are. So they're protected in that energy for us to be able to go and experience. I encourage participants to engage with the land in a quiet and mindful way. We take time to ground ourselves and we become very present. Instead of rushing through, I want people to feel the energy of the site, the spirit of the place, listen to it, honour it. Yes, we'll have photo opportunities, of course. Feel it. Or not feel it and experience that. So when it comes to preserving the sacredness, I also work locally with the local custodians and communities to ensure those sites are respected and cared for. I check in. I'm not just a visitor myself. I'm part of a lineage of honouring these spaces. We are all stewards of the land and we have a responsibility to that. So finding a balance, letting people experience the power of the land, but doing it in such a way that ensures we're not depleting or disrespecting the very thing that makes these sacred sites in the first place. I completely understand the concerns about the weather and physical challenges. It's a big part of what makes the experience real and raw. I mean, there is some videos in the past where I've had rain come in, underneath a hat and just been dripping, soaking wet in the wind, howling, and yet it's been the most magical experience. So if there's one thing I can say about the weather in Wales is part magic. It's unpredictable. It adds to the sacredness of the journey. Whether it's raining or shining or the sun is shining, just embrace the elements, connecting you to the land. That weather in itself is expressing something. It's really being present in the experience. And of course, we'll have blankets and towels in the minibus just to mop all it if you do get too wet. So, mindful of everyone's abilities, on a serious note, these sacred sites are quite easily accessible. Some have walking or navigating uneven ground, and the key is to go at your own pace. And I know these sites, so I can tell you where it's going to be challenging and not. And our minibus gets us really close as possible we can to each site, so we can accommodate everybody there. And of course, if you don't want to go to the sites, you can stay on the minibus. That's totally okay. We also have a team member who will help you with any logistic needs. So you're never on your own. Nobody's ever on their own. And if it's that crazily bad, we always have a contingency plan, and we can always adjust it and go and seek shelter at some nearby historical sites. Fraudulent slip, hysterical. We could be hysterical with the weather. But ultimately, flexible, open-minded, the weather and terrain are part of what makes these sites sacred. It also might be challenging at times, but it is also what makes the experience feel so authentic. Share the journey of discovery. Walk away with some great memories. Oof. I really hope people leave with a deep personal connection to the land and a renewed sense of reverence for nature and the Welsh history and, of course, spirituality. So the landscapes of Wales are rich with stories, energy and wisdom, as we've just been speaking about. And whether you're standing on sacred ground of a burial chamber, whether you're listening to the wind coming through ancient trees, whether you're sitting by the lake at sunset listening to a storyteller tell you about what happened there, whether you're participating in a ritual or a stone circle, I want you to get the feel that you've touched something timeless. I want you to carry a sense of peace and purpose. The rituals and teachings on the tour aren't just about learning facts. I'll give you plenty of that. They're about cultivating a deeper connection to the self and the world around us. I want you to leave with a clearer understanding of your own spiritual path, inspired to live in alignment with the natural world, and a wisdom of your ancestors, wherever they may come from. Lastly, I hope you develop a sense of stewardship, realizing that all these sacred sites and stories are not just part of the past, but part of your ongoing journey. I want you to leave feeling empowered, knowing that role in preserving these traditions. You've just played a major part in the story of Welsh history. You have become part of the land, and you can pass that wisdom to future generations. It's about the connections you make, not just with the land, but with each other. That's why this group is small and will always be small. Let those spiritual threads weave through all of us. And that's what I hope stays with you long after the tour ends. I am on a quest, and sometimes it feels exhausting in a most beautiful way. The tour really is an extension of everything I'm working on and living by, with the Welsh Druidry course, the Druid tours, the ancient wisdom of Cymru oracle cards about the characters that we have in our mythology and folklores and what they mean, and my mentoring and doing the mentoring. So for me, it's just more about visiting sites. It's about living the history of Wales. I want people to walk those sacred grounds, of course. I want them to feel the ancestors of that site, the energy and the stories. So through the tour, I'm able to bring the course to alive. The Welsh Druidry course gives people a solid foundation, and everybody that comes on the tour gets access to this Welsh Druidry course. Okay? So it allows them to experience what they've just learned on paper, video, online. So it's not about the history, it's about the feeling and the heartbeat, the modern day heartbeat and the ancient times. So when you're standing on ground the Druids walked upon and the ancestors walked upon, when you visit the sites where rituals take place, it's a connection that goes beyond words. Truly get to your senses. That's what the talk provides. It's taking the teachings and putting them into practice the most authentic way I know possible. The land talks. Books can't convey what the land speaks to you when you stand on it. That feeling of connection. And honestly, it's about building community. The tour isn't just a solo experience. It's about creating connections with others, share the same passions. It's about finding like-minded souls who want to carry the wisdom of ancestors forward. In a sense, there's a bigger picture about preserving, sharing, and living Welsh Druidry in a way that feels really real and alive. Oh, holy crumbs. What advice would I give? Well, the first advice would be book a mentoring session with me. Joke, not a joke. If you're feeling drawn to Druidry, my first bit of advice would be just to step back and really listen to your heart. Really listen. Can you really connect in there, right? It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of path, so it's important to that you can trust your instincts, and you've got to, sometimes trusting our instincts is a learning experience. Start by connecting to the natural world around you. Observe. Eyes, ears to listen, smell, taste, feeling. Okay, get this beautiful earth to connect to every sense that you have. Okay, it'll teach you in ways you'd probably not even expect to be treated. And then next, find community or a mentor that resonates with you. Don't feel like you need to figure it all out on your own. I most certainly have, and I'm still not. I still get a wealth of knowledge and experience from books, from my online groups, from real life gatherings, with the connections I make, my teachers, my fellow Druids. Everybody is on their own journey in Druidry and can give insights and knowledge and wisdom. We can't hold it all ourselves. We're not supposed to hold it all ourselves. So for me, my Hawaiian lineage and my Welsh roots are very much intertwined, but your journey can look different, and that's okay. Find what resonates and trust the process. If you feel a bit uncertain about where to start with the teachings, don't rush it. Druidry is not about getting it all packed tight and loaded. It's a way of life. So take your time, be patient. There's no rush to get to your destination. Enjoy it. Enjoy the path. Enjoy everything, what you've learned with your heart, not just your mind. And finally, really embrace the sacredness of your own path. There's no right or wrong way. Not when you know you're nature-based. It's not. It's about your personal connection to the land, to your ancestors, to the deeper truths that you're going to uncover along the way. Just take the first step. Let everything else fall into place as it's meant to, and it will. When you take this path, it will. One of the most profound experiences, there is not one. They're too hard to pick. I have too many. Like each place owns its own unique energy. So I'm actually in the process of writing all of my experiences down in a book, because it is too much to fit into a single conversation, so I can't really easily tell you that. What I can tell you is that these experiences have shaped who I am as a druid and as a guide on this journey. So the land speaks to me in such a deep personal way when I've allowed myself to be open to it. It's pure magic. So if you want to hear these stories and all the profound experiences I've had, then you need to come on the tour, don't you? You need to come. Of course, you can wait for the book, but honestly, each time we visit one of these sacred places, I'm reminded of just how much the land is alive with history, spirit, and the wisdom I've gained because of it. So I can't wait to share that with others. A final question. Yay! What sets it apart? Well, it's led by me, and I don't mean that in an arrogant and egotistical way. What I mean is it's led by somebody who was born and bred of the land. Okay, someone has deep ancestral roots in Wales. I'm not guiding people around. I'm a Welsh Druid with a personal connection to these sites and the wisdom that I've gained. It's not about visiting places, it's about walking the land with somebody who feels the pulse of it in their very DNA. The tour isn't a generic pilgrimage. It's a journey through the spirit of place. These sacred sites are so much more than landmarks to me. They're part of who I am. I've just gone all. It's a connection to something I feel so privileged to share with others. So when you join the tour, you're not just hearing stories from me or from everybody that's going to be sharing with you. You're experiencing them through someone who truly understands the magic and the history of the land. Myself, Salina, Gwilym, Bev and Tony. I've lived these stories. I felt the ancientness of the mountains, the sanctuary of the valley, the sacred woods and groves. When we visit places, you're walking with somebody who has a lived experience of this land, its traditions, and somebody who carries the blood and bone of its ancestors. It's a depth of connection. It's not just any pilgrimage. So if you're looking for that authenticness, personal experience in a small selective group, this is the tour for you. It's about walking in the footsteps of our ancestors, feeling the land's energy, connecting with living tradition that's been passed down. It's a journey that will stay with you long after it's over. So yeah, come and join us.